your head up right with me, let's go. Keep your ears up and listen to me, let's go. Keep your head up right with me, let's go. Keep your ears up,
Who's
listen
down
to
with
me, let's go. Keep your head
TTP? Who's down with TTP? You down with TTP? Who's down with TTP? Real quick, here comes the breakdown. What up, what up, what up? You already know who this is, and you already know what time it is. Alright? It's TTP. Alright? So first off, one, I need to clarify something that I feel like everybody should definitely know. I apologize for how the time constraints of these are done. I gotta come up with the materials and stuff like that. Like I said, there's research involved. So it's not just I just record and film and everything like that, and then we good to go. As far as the live YouTube feed that I was gonna turn around and do, apparently there's certain requirements that you need for that. So that kind of messed me up a little bit, but it's all good, man. We're gonna turn around, roll with it, do what we gotta do. So it's cool. All right. So first and foremost, if you do not know who this is in front of you, I am the MICCASTERJ. That's me, the Mike Caster. All right. And you are on Trust the Plus. All right. Podcast where we talk about everything, all mental and emotional triggers. All right. And we just dive into certain topics, create a discussion, talk about it as we should. Once I get that YouTube stuff up, you guys will see more of how that will structure and formulate. Right now, due to the circumstances, I'm going to do it in this setting, and I'm going to get that stuff set up and fixed by the next episode, all right? And that being said, our topic today that we're going to turn around and talk about is the struggleship of relationship. All right. And if you don't know what we're going to talk about by now, it's relationship. Sorry, I always got to do that. So, that being said, we're going to get into it, all right, y'all? So, you already know we like to start this off with the definitions, right? So, a couple of definitions for relationship, and I think all of them are important to kind of understand where we're going to go with this and have people really get the concept, all right? So first off, the first definition of relationship is the way in which two or more concepts, objects, or people are connected, all right? Or a state of being is connected, all right? Another one is the state of being connected by blood or marriage. And then the final one is the way in which two or more people or groups regard and behave toward each other. Why did you read all three of that? Well, I'm glad you asked, person who would have asked if we could have done this live like I was going to. But reason why I turned around and asked that, why I said all of that is because when we talk about relationships, it's not going to just be geared and focused mainly on towards marriage and stuff like that. There's all kinds of relationships. You got business relationships. You got relationships with your kids. You got, relationships with your in-laws. You got relationships with your friends, your best friends. You got marriage. That's one. All right. There's all kinds of relationships. All right. So we're going to get into all of that, right? So, of course, as always, as we get into this topic, man, we're going to dive it down into sections, man. So first, we're going to get into how it overcomes, all right? How it comes into, how it enters. So, just how do people find themselves in different types of relationship issues, right? Well, let's kind of dive into that, man. So, going through the research and looking at a couple of stuff, man, I saw there's various ways and wormholes that you can get into on why relationships fail, why people get into the things that they get into, man. But just going from a natural standpoint, man, based off of relationship and everything, is that different backgrounds, views, all right? All of that tend to create hardships on people, struggles that can have an emotional and mental effect, man. Because at the end of the day, when it comes to these relationships and people that you interact with, you got to understand at the end of the day, you're all individual people, all right? You know, how you have to naturally react with that person is how they wouldn't naturally react with somebody of the same background and same views, all right? So, for instance, because we have relationships like that, this is a good example of that. You could be in a relationship with friends who smoke and you're not a smoker. So, how you react and how you turn around and interact, it would be way different from them, man. That some of them think that a typical Tuesday afternoon is turn around and get smacked up and just be, completely in the zone, man. For you, typical Tuesday is, nix all that noise. Let's go out and bowl, let's go do something active, you know what I'm saying, like that. And this is not an insinuation that people who smoke aren't active, but I'm just saying your time, your thought process of where you guys should be at and what should be the next move can turn around and coincide, not coincide just off of simple terms like that. You know what I mean? Or, you could have married somebody who is from a completely different country, man. So now stuff that they're used to and everything like that, they have to now adjust because they, either they move to where you were or you move to where they are, and now you have to kind of like deal with a whole another dynamic. All right, and some of that can create strains on the relationship because you either don't understand as quickly or it's not as easy for you to adapt to. You know, as say that person because they're specifically from that culture. Going into it, and I'm gonna throw a whole lot of stereotypical type stuff because this is where people's mindset are. Going into it, like when the white person and the black person dates, it's two different dynamics, man. You turn around and move with that person, let's say it's the black person in the relationship that move to where the Caucasian person is, man. Typically, Caucasian people have a different lifestyle. It is what it is. We're not turning this into a racial thing, but I'm just giving you an example, and that's a good example. Have a different lifestyle that maybe that person's not used to. They're not used to being able to be chatty with every single body, have a lot of trust networks, have people who actually are invested in what they do, and all this stuff like that. Like all those are typical red flags for people of color. Because it usually means that somebody's trying to get in their business, trying to find a way to sabotage it, trying to find a way to take it from you, all types of different things, which is terrible. It's not to say that white people don't go through it too, but in a general setting, that usually is typically more of a minority thing than it is for people of Caucasian race or background. See what I'm saying? So, those dynamics can coincide. And then if you flip that, and you take a Caucasian person and then take them out of their element, and then now they're in the area where, it's privatized or it's not. And again, these are not to turn around and create a racial thing and say that this is everybody, but just general way of looking at it and just to create a vivid picture. You take a Caucasian person out of a nice area and everything like that, put them in a neighborhood that is privatized, all kinds of crazy shenanigans and stuff going on there. That dynamic can completely flip somebody over and create a lot of stress. See what I'm saying? That's just simple as just like changing scenes and scenarios and cultures and stuff like that. As this thing turns around, diverse cultural backgrounds, right? So, things like that can create emotional strains that really affect the aspect of how you look at things, right? So another way that puts strains on relationship is this 50-50 thing, man. There is no way for you to measure in a relationship the importance of the impact somebody has in a relationship, unless we're talking about the obvious, where the person just either doesn't do nothing or that person is doing everything. All right, if it is not at 100 like that, which nobody stays in a relationship long when it is. You can't generally gauge, man. So this whole thing where we're like, you gotta do part of this work, you gotta do part of this work. Biblically, that's it's just not accurate, man. The 50-50 comes from everybody performing in the way that they can and what they bring to the relationship. And then even, biblically, typically speaking, man, when the woman is turned around, just talking from the perspective of a man and a woman, a man is turned around and doing the stuff that he's supposed to do as a man, and the woman is doing stuff that she's supposed to do as a woman. That's typically your 50-50, man. And sometimes those things might not coincide. Sometimes those things might be more important than when the other one deems, or might come with more sacrifices or more things that you're doing than the other one at certain times. And again, because I don't want this focus to go into stereotypicals, which is why I'm being very careful on how I give these scenarios and trying to make sure the emphasis is not on stereotypes. But I'm also going to generally show you where people specifically think, because this is we're trying to get to the root of where these issues come from. When women are like, why do I always gotta take care of the child and everything like that? Or, why men are like, why do I have to have the job and everything like that? It's just typically that's just rooted, man. It's different level of mantles of responsibilities that you're supposed to uphold. It doesn't mean that the other person can't uphold it. It's just generally we're structured and wired that way, man. Women by nature, even if you don't add biblical context, are more nurturing souls. Men can be, but we're not. And then, there's time and places where our nurturing, our settings on where we're supposed to be at, child-wise, are supposed to take point. Just like in a woman's life, there's time and places where their setting in which they need to turn around and like really work or help feed the family or something like that, or go out and do stuff. It interchanges, all right. But the typical setting of when I'm trying to focus that is getting people to understand that at the end of the day, we all got roles in a relationship. We all have strengths and weaknesses and stuff like that. And if you really want the 50-50 to be a thing, generally play to each other's strengths and weaknesses, man. Stop trying to over expect what your partner should or should not be doing. Stop trying to place labels or extracurricular activities on what you think they should also be good at or supposed to be good at, because again, at the end of the day, you chose this person, yo. And we gonna keep it light and we gonna keep it there. Not because we're not being 100 about it, but again, I don't want to distract. I'm very careful on doing this without the distractions of everyday society stuff, because again, society got this whole plague thing that can go into a wormhole of other stuff of how people should view relationships and all this, that, and the third, and independent women nation, or men stand up for yourself type thing going on, or just like, that's not the focus. You want to understand how to turn around and maintain that 50-50, understand how you both are coming in a relationship, man, and understand that each person has roles, and those roles won't specifically be the same, and they won't be at the same degree every single time. It's not possible. All right. And that's a good way to segue into something called selfishness, because that also creates these mental and emotional problems that people go through, because they're just typically, some people go into relationships with the wrong mindset. What am I getting out of this? If you love somebody, and I mean really love somebody, whether it's a marriage, it's your boyfriend, girlfriend, whether you guys are best friends or it's an employee relationship, at all times there's going to be levels in the relationship where you get nothing. You get nothing, man. Again, taking it biblically, because this is trust the plus. Jesus died for everybody's sins. What you gonna give Jesus? He died for you. What you gonna give him? See what I'm saying? He got the short end of the stick. He had to be tortured. He had to be bruised, attacked, and everything, and he was killed. So I'm saying, because we have a relationship with Jesus, and that's part of that aspect was part of that relationship with Jesus. What you gonna give him back? Since we're talking about giving people back and receiving stuff, what is Jesus gonna get from that? You know what I'm saying? So again, if God doesn't do that and doesn't move, and Jesus doesn't move in a way of selfishness, or what am I gonna get back from that? Because if they did, we all doomed. Why are we gonna operate in the same light, man? So you know, naturally, you just got to be able to learn how to just be in relationships and do stuff for the good of doing of others, man. For the good of because you love that person, or because you have that established relationship to turn around and do that work, that job you need to do that was in your job requirements that you said yes to in the interview, or because this is your best friend from a long time who's done stuff for you in the past, you've done stuff for them in the past. Sometimes it's just there's a portion where you have to take yourself out of it. So much of um, what am I getting from this? All right, because that naturally leads down a very deep hole, which is uncomfortable, man. It creates demands that are never going to be fulfilled. So it puts the relationship in this sense self-centered area rather than being about the respect or love or whatever the case may be that you have between each other. All right. Um, so it stops you from naturally putting that person's needs above your own and trying to put your needs above that person. Which okay, good luck establishing a relationship like that. Because again, even naturally, in the aspect of trying to get something back, you don't get something without giving something. See what I'm saying? So you still kind of stabbing yourself in the back when you don't have that whole doing for other spirit um, in mind anyway. So you're still being counterproductive, um, even if you weren't thinking in that mindset. So another thing is, and you're not gonna dive too far into all of these, but another thing is trials, man. Uh, when the going gets tough, people bail out, man. You're gonna deal with a lot of hardships and stakes in your relationships, all right? And again, whatever those relationships are. And you're gonna come to a point of disagreements, come to a head at certain types of things, and that's okay. You know, one of the biggest trials is this thing where people feel like in a relationship you gotta agree 100% of the time. No, that's that's not that's not the it's not the case, man. It's not the case. A lot of it is kind of like pulling together through situations or kind of coming cohesively on situations and trying to figure out a way to uh, come up with a solution together. You know what I'm saying? Instead of trying to do this blame game, which can be very detrimental to a person, man, especially someone in the whichever of you in the relationship has insecurities. Always that person be coming into this bad habit of being the fall person, man. That's depressing. That's depressing, and it's not a good way to go about in your relationship, man. Um, or it leads to you have an accusing mindset, man. So like nothing is ever your fault. It's always somebody else's fault. So you lose all accountability. All right. So when you go through these trials and stuff like that, instead of trying to drive each other away, try to work together. All right. Because a lot of times these trials in your relationships are devised to pull them apart. That's why they're trials. Whether it's your best friend or anything like that, if you really care about that person really meant about a lot to you, or the business relationship meant a lot to you, or anything like that, then you would turn around and fight for it naturally. If it actually meant that great deal for you. So, we should always have that mindset, period, even when we're going through moments of pain, all right? Because a lot of trials tend to bring pain, and usually when people feel pain, it creates uncomfortable feelings that they don't want. Nobody likes being uncomfortable, but it doesn't mean you take it out on the people in those relationships. All right. And then a final thing we'll kind of throw in there is a false view of love, which here's what I'm gonna say, right? I, even when I'm doing this podcast as we speak, was yo, what up, what up? It's the MICCASTERJ. That's me, the Mike Caster, teaming up with you guys at Habits 365. Turn around rocking the wear, man. Got the shirt, we got the hat. Anybody turn around and interested, they got a strong message of enforcing strong positive habits, a strong mental health mentality, all the things that I'm about, man. So you can check it out with the link that's attached to this video. And you can utilize my code and get yourself 20% off. I was very careful to not turn this into a whole what somebody else think and other things. I'm just kind of strictly coming more so from a place of just factual or common sense type stuff. A lot of the stuff we're going to is factual and common sense type stuff. And then even when it comes to relationship, a lot of it is instinctive, man. It's instinctive. It's kind of knowing each other. Again, having that understanding of what relationships mean in the Bible. Because that was actually one of the ones I was on there, deep lack of understanding, relationship with Jesus and the Bible, man. You'd be surprised how much the Bible can help your relationship. All right. How much insight you can gain on your partner just through understanding relationships from a biblical perspective. All right. Whatever those relationships are. And I challenge you to turn around and really give the Bible a try. You'll be surprised, man. You get a lot of insight, man. But again, going into it, it's falsehood of love. The way love is portrayed on screens now. All these people who turn around and do these talk shows and stuff like that. Meanwhile, they're on like their fourth marriage and they're about to divorce that person and everything. Like get out of all of that, man. All right. And start creating that level of intimacy with the person that you are interacting with. Or that level of closeness with the person that you're interacting with. You want to really establish a healthy relationship. Get to know the person that you're doing that relationship with on both ends. All right. And then, like I said, man, turn around and throw some Jesus in there, man. Throw some Jesus in there. That's not gonna catch on. But yeah, strength and weaknesses, man. That's what the Bible is all about when it comes to relationship. Understanding strengths and weaknesses, man. Creating a center. And as long as you make God that center in that relationship, I guarantee you can pull past whatever trials and tribulations that your relationship may face. So some of the things that that you can turn around and do to really kind of help you in that area, because that's a lot of where all that struggle turn around and comes and enters in your relationship from, right? They're usually called a cool dynamic that one of the research sites that I looked at was power struggles, man. So the dynamic of power struggles, stuff that really creates this thing where you guys are trying to create friction and your two forces trying to oppose each other, man. And a lot of that comes from certain understandings that you don't have. So not discovering factors that may lead to those conflicts in a relationship, not learning your partner or brainstorming productively to reach a solution, or even, knowing personalities differences that may cause those power struggles, man. So that's a good that's a good word for it, man. Because even with COVID as it stands right now, man, even after the pandemic and stuff like that, man, there's been a substantial decrease in people's will to want to be in like really stabilized relationships, man. Divorce has definitely been on the increase, man. So there's been a lot of decline in marriage activity. And a lot of that is due to, we don't want to, when when it comes to trying to understand each other and create a level of closeness, we're not trying to create that level of closeness as much as possible now. Now we're in this like weird selfish tendency area type of thing, and it's just really unnatural and really unhealthy, man. And it's leading to a lot of emotional and mental instability between people in their relationships, man. Just going from 2019 going into now, man. Declining rates between ages of 25 and 39, or even 40 and 49. So it's just like we're in a place now where, especially given everything that's happened now, we're in a place now where rekindling that thought press on the relationships that we have in our life is really important. Because again, we're social creatures by nature. Whether you think about it scientifically or you believe that biblically, we are social creatures by nature. You can keep trying to play this lone wolf game all you want to, but you're not. At the end of the day, you seek relationships in whatever the case may be. Whether it's at the bar talking to the bartender, it's with your buddies, your homie, your job, your career, what you do, everything we do is to seek a relationship out of. That's just how we are formulated. So to try and go against the grain on that and then wonder why we have all these mental and emotional issues stimulating from that, it's very, very confusing. It's very confusing, man. So some things to really think about, and I will pose them in the at the end of this video, because these were stuff I was going to ask on the live as I was interacting with people. Is stuff to think about is how has the impact of COVID deteriorated the closeness of bonding in marriage relationships. So how has those moments where you had these were the four walls and this person that you're with, you had to see majority of the time because you both were working at home one time. Has that brought you a level of closeness? Has that revealed some stuff that you guys get to turn around and dismiss because you got a moment of break? You got a break, got a moment of relief. Because sometimes going to work is the difference maker to easing out certain tensions and just letting those fall to the wayside and never addressing them. So, whereas the impact of COVID, and the pandemic has caused you guys to have to really look at each other in the face and take these things head on. Has been harder to date and meet people due to quarantine. Some people are still not comfortable with going out, man. So a lot of people are now going back on these dating sites, man, doing Zoom calls, meeting each other on Facebook and stuff like that, which was actually already starting to become a thing even before the pandemic. So people are losing that ability to engage and interact with each other face to face. Because, you can do a video call, like you guys can see me and stuff like that. But, if we were trying to form a relationship and, create dialogue, body movements, motions, and stuff like that, it's usually better in person. Now, for here, it works. Because it's a podcast. I'm talking to you, man. We doing verbal dialogue back and forth and just kind of like spouting around the discussion. But for two people trying to get to know each other or really, really establish something, it's harder. You need that physical nature. Or maybe you might disagree with me. Maybe the fact that you don't have the pressures of having to physically meet up and you can just focus on that dialogue is helpful, because in some cases it might be. Just the fact that there's no distractions, there's no restaurants, there's no people, there's no loud noises, you're not at a concert, nothing like that. It's just that straight interaction of us having to talk to each other because we can't physically touch, so all we have is verbal communication. Maybe that's also enhancing it. So that's something to think about, which side of the spectrum you on. Another thing that I feel like has also been affecting relationships as far as like what people bring on and want, because we'll kind of go into that realm, is has the misconception of being sexually promiscuous exceeded the understanding of safe sex practices, man? or just going on simply to say that, now that people are really trying to like strive out and gain protection and become more flirty and stuff like that. You got all these OnlyFans and everything like that. Is that affecting people's ability on the back end to create substantial relationships, to actually have people turn around and communicate them that they're trying to form a bond with without wanting something in return? See what I'm saying? And then also, again, how do spiritual awareness or being God conscious play a role in who you date, man? So, again, and this is something I actually plan to talk about next week, but we'll get into that another time. In a society right now that's turned a lot away from the church and everything like that, how does that affect you interacting with somebody, man? How does that affect somebody else who's still probably really spiritually conscious? Or how does that affect you when you're spiritually conscious? You come to somebody else who's kind of like shaky and within that faith and doesn't understand relationships from a biblical perspective. Even the way of how we choose a mate in COVID-19, how does that affect it, right? Or even in the 5 years before that, how does that affect it, our way that we've established relationships? Has the pandemic made it harder to form substantial relationships? Especially choosing somebody that you want to turn around and marry. All this social distancing, mask, and being able to connect and meet to places, and being limited on that. And then, of course, has social apps, which we talked about, taken over that social meet and greet, that ability to just kind of like actually really interact with somebody in a setting outside of your home. So those are questions I'm gonna put at the end for you guys to turn around and think about. But with that, I want to kind of more so slide over into how to overcome these emotional and mental deals regarding all of this these situations stemming around relationships. And I want to be careful how to do this. So I'm not going to give you a standpoint, because if you notice, I did something where I mixed how it enters and then created responses from that, or perspectives from that. Because the truth of the matter is what I told you in the beginning. If you want to really establish a relationship, one, I would urge you to get a biblical understanding of relationships, because it will make so much more sense to how relationships should form or look like in your life. Because there's a lot of misconceptions of relationship. There's a lot of over expectations, wants, and needs that we create because society has deemed it relationships in this weird parameter where you should always get something, where the person should always make you happy. It's that job. It's that person's job to make you happy. Well, I mean, even biblically, that's not correct either. Especially in marriages, it's not your spouse's job to make you happy. Oops. There's also now at the same time, there's also nothing wrong with transactional relationships either, where you both are turn around and bringing something. But the terminology in there biblically is you both are bringing something. You understand what both of you bring to the table. A lot of things people take for granted. They always want their partner to have something, but they don't ever really take time to consider on their end, what are they bringing? Simple things like that you can get biblically. You see what I'm saying? So that would be my answer to you on how to overcome those relationship struggles, and the pains and emotional factors that's been stressing on. Get God in the mix. There's no way to talk about relationships and overcoming them without putting God in it, because that's where they stem from. That's the person who deems relationships on a high regard, and it's all written out throughout the biblical text, man. So that's what I would say, because if I sit here and try and give you my spill on it, or other people try to sit here and give you your spill on it, you're going to get like 50 billion different takes. So although I gave you some kind of factual stuff, or, ways of how issues can occur, that's different, because it stems the same way across the board. It just comes in different forms. That at the end of the day, the issues are all the same. However, the response to it is based off of you and your ability to how close God is in your relationship and putting that in the centerfold. It's your ability on how much you deem and respect that person, how much you understand where you both coordinate and work into and taking value in that. All right, these are all things that are biblical and are in the text. All right. We can't go around that. There's no way to go around that. All right. So that would be my answer to you as far as that. Now, of course, gotta hit you with the biblical stuff before I turn around and peace out. But one text that spoke out to me that I wanted to turn around and utilize for this very thing is a text people are familiar with, and they mostly associate it to marriage. And that's First Corinthians chapter 13, verse 4 through 7. And that's love is patient and kind. Love does not envy or boast. It is not arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice at wrongdoing, but rejoices with truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. So, rather than turn around and completely break each and every sentence down, already in the Bible it gave you one of your answers to overcome and really establish meaningful relationships. You gotta have love in it. You gotta have love in it. And to have love into it is to have an unconditional love where you're not sitting here proactively looking for all these things, and when these things take place, you're not holding it against the person like some kind of leverage. All right. And that's important, man, because having that, just that alone, creates that patience, that kindness, that ability to deal with people in their in their ups and their downs, to turn around and work together to avoid trials and tribulations that come in the way and try to create a fork between you. And helps you endure a lot. So that would be one of the main takeaways I would want you to get from this, man. Get you some love, get you some God inside there, get you some understanding, man. Those three things alone, creates all that other stuff that people stimulate, even communication. You know, that communication and understand, it's part of that understanding. So, those three things alone can take you a long way as far as relationships, man. And I would strongly urge that, because even myself had to turn around and remind myself of that, because life is funny like that. It's very quick to turn around and make you become selfish. Don't let it, man. We're stronger together. And relationships are stronger when both of you are turned around and create an impact on each other versus wondering how much that other person is putting into anything like that. Don't take all that stuff out of the equation, man, and start creating selfless relationships, man. Less self-centered relationships, man. Take the me out of it, man. All right. Other than that, this has been TTP. This is episode 11. Next episode, I will push very hard to ensure that I can turn around and do it live, because I want these things to be live. I want the interaction. I want people to join in, feed off of that and stuff like that, man. That's the way that we're going, because again, at the end of the day, this is a podcast, you know what I'm saying? So I feel like that's a better platform for this. But in the meantime, this is still cool. This has been about relationships. Title was Struggleship of Relationship. So again, I am the Mike Caster. All right, the MICCASTERJ. That's me. And again, this is TTP. We'll catch you back again next week. Other than that, peace. All right, and just throwing a quick plug. I will start throwing in another couple of links of my Bible study that I do. For those of you turn around and being interested, because I want to start making sure I kind of put that platform out there as well too. So I'll start leaving that link within my video stuff, so you guys can turn around and join us. All right, that's 7 to 8, man, Monday through Thursday. All right, I'm done. Love y'all. Later.